All right, so let's jump right into this India-Australia rivalry. We've got some really interesting stuff here about the latest Border-Gavaskar Trophy, and, well, honestly, this is a series we just have to break down, especially with that crazy ending.
Yeah, no kidding. This one had some surprises for sure.
So the main thing we're looking at is this podcast episode called The Boundary Line Border-Gavaskar Trophy 2024-25 Analysis, hosted by Rahul and Priya. They go deep on the series where, get this, Australia actually won in India.
Yeah.
Something that hasn't happened in what, like a decade?
Over a decade, yeah. They won the series 3-1, which is a huge deal. I mean, India's been so dominant on our home ground for so long.
Okay, so for people who maybe don't follow cricket religiously, a test match is the longest form of the game, played over 5 days. To win a series, you got to win more of these individual test matches than the other team, and it really is a test. Skill, endurance, the whole thing. And this series, man, all India started off strong too. They won that first test in Perth by a whopping 295 runs.
Now, you'd think that would set them up to just dominate the whole thing.
Right.
But Australia had other ideas, apparently.
They sure did. So what happened in that second test in Adelaide? What changed things so drastically? Australia won by 10 wickets, which basically means they bowled out India twice and chased down the runs without losing a single wicket themselves.
I mean, that's a statement win, if I've ever heard of one.
Oh, yeah. The second test was the turning point for sure. A 10-wicket win.
Mm-hmm.
That's a crushing defeat, And it gives the winning team just a huge surge of confidence. So for Australia, it was a psychological win. It really shifted the momentum of the whole series.
And then what happened after Adelaide?
Well, the third test in Brisbane was a close one.
Oh.
Ended in a draw, which, that just made things even more exciting. But then Australia kept the pressure on. They won by 184 runs in the fourth test in Melbourne, and then they sealed the deal with a 6-wicket win in the final test in Sydney.
A real roller coaster ride.
Absolutely.
For both teams.
Yeah.
Okay, so now let's talk about the players. Travis Head. He was the top run scorer for Australia.
Yeah.
What was his role and why was he so important to their success? Oh, Travis Head. He was crucial. His job was to stabilize the middle order and then really speed up the run rate. He got 2 centuries and he was consistently building partnerships with the other guys. The way he scored so fast, it really put the pressure on India's bowlers. Let Australia set some tough targets. He was a game changer.
So it wasn't just about the runs he was getting, it was the pace.
Exactly.
Okay.
Again,
And it wasn't just Head, though. Australia had some other players who really stood out, too, right?
absolutely. Scott Boland.
Yeah.
Now, he's relatively new to Test cricket, but he made a huge impact. He took 21 wickets in the series. And get this, a 10-wicket haul in that last test in Sydney. So basically, he's like striking out every batter on a team twice in a single match.
Wow. Sounds unstoppable.
Yeah, he was amazing. And then, of course, you've got Pat Cummins, the captain. His bowling was stellar, too.
Of course.
He cooked 25 wickets himself, and his captaincy was so effective, he made smart bowling changes, set aggressive fields, just kept the pressure on India the whole time.
A powerful duo leading the charge. But India had their moments, too, even in defeat. Jasprit Bumrah was phenomenal with the ball.
Old Bumrah was India's spearhead for sure. His bowling style is just unique. Pace and swing, a nightmare for Australia's batters. He ended up with 32 wickets, which is an average of just over 13 runs per wicket.
13 runs per wicket. That is incredible. He was basically getting a wicket almost every time he bowled 13 runs. So efficient. And India also had a new face in their batting lineup. Yashasvi Jaiswal.
Yeah, Jaiswal showed a lot of promise as an opener. Technically sound, mentally tough. He just looked really comfortable out there.
Yeah.
Scored 391 runs, including a few half-centuries, which means he got 50 runs or more in an innings multiple times.
So even though they lost the series, India had some players who really showed what they're made of, especially against such a tough Australian team. Now, in a series this close, there are always those moments, those turning points that really stick with you. What would you say was the defining moment of this Border-Gavaskar Trophy?
For me, it has to be Scott Boland's 10-wicket haul in Sydney. It was just bowling mastery, completely demoralized the Indian batsmen, and it really cemented Australia's win. One of those moments in sports you just have to see to believe.
I can only imagine. What a performance. And I've got to ask, what about Jasprit Bumrah's injury? He missed that last test, and, well, India really felt his absence. How much do you think that injury affected the series outcome?
Yeah, it was definitely a big blow for India. He'd been their most consistent bowler, and, well, it left a big hole in their attack. Hard to say if he could have changed the outcome of that last test, but it didn't help, that's for sure.
Yeah. It's like losing your star quarterback right before the playoffs changes the whole game. Okay, so let's look at the teams as a whole. What were the key things that let Australia break India's winning streak like that? We know their bowling was fierce, but was there something more?
Well, their bowling attack was definitely huge,
Yeah.
and their batting was super aggressive. But there was also a difference in strategy. I think Australia just seemed to have a clearer plan, and they executed it perfectly. Plus, they were adaptable, changing tactic depending on the conditions and the game situation.
Mm.
They were just more clinical in all aspects of the game, really.
So it was a real team effort, a well-oiled machine. What about India then? Where did they fall short? What weaknesses did Australia exploit?
Their middle order batting, that was their weak spot for sure. They couldn't build partnerships, couldn't convert starts into big scores.
Yeah.
And that put so much pressure on the top order. And when those guys failed, the whole innings just fell apart.
And we know from what we've read that they were also missing a true all-rounder, someone who can contribute with both bat and ball.
Exactly. Australia had Cameron Green, and he was crucial. He stabilized the middle order with the bat, and then he got some key wickets too. India just didn't have that kind of all-round option, and it limited their flexibility.
It seems like having that multi-dimensional player can really make a difference. All right, I want to talk about some of those individual moments of brilliance, those battles that make this rivalry so exciting. What were some of the matchups that stood out to you?
Bumrah versus Steve Smith. That was a fascinating one. Two masters at the top of their game. Bumrah's bowling style was a real challenge for Smith, who's known for his unique batting technique and his consistency.
A real chess match.
Exactly. Smith did manage to score some runs against Bumrah,
Right.
but man, he had to work for every single one. Bumrah kept him guessing the whole time, changing his pace on line, forcing him out of his comfort zone.
And those are the moments cricket fans live for. So much intensity. Every ball is like a whole drama unfolding. Any other highlights we should talk about?
Oh, yeah. Travis Head against the Indian spinners. That was something else. He showed real skill and temperament against some of the best in the world. He used his feet well, played aggressive shots, didn't let those spinners get comfortable at all.
Sounds like he came in with a plan and just executed it perfectly.
Yeah.
Did that surprise you at all, knowing that Australia has historically struggled against spin bowling in India?
It did a little bit, yeah. Head's performance showed how much he's improved as a batsman and how well he can adapt to tough conditions. It was a real breakout series for him. He's a key player in that Australian lineup now.
It's always great to see a player step up like that. All right, let's talk about the fans for a second. The Border-Gavaskar Trophy always has such an amazing atmosphere. What was it like to be there, to experience this rivalry firsthand?
It was electric. The stadiums were packed. The crowds were so passionate. The noise was incredible. Cricket's like a religion in both India and Australia. The fans were completely invested in every ball. It was a real privilege to be a part of it.
You could feel the history, the intensity of the rivalry. Was there any animosity between the fans, or is it mostly friendly?
Oh, there was definitely some banter, some friendly rivalry,
Yeah.
but it was all in good fun. Everyone was there to enjoy the spectacle of Test cricket and watch two great teams battle it out.
So the rivalry's still respectful, even with all the competition. That's what makes sports so great. Okay, so for someone who's new to cricket or the Border-Gavaskar Trophy, what should they know to really appreciate this series? Why should they care about the outcome?
This trophy is more than just a cricket series, It's a clash of cultures, a battle for national pride. It's a rivalry that's given us some of the most iconic moments in cricket history, and it still captures the imagination of millions of fans around the world.
So it's the history, the passion, the drama.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And even if you're not a diehard cricket fan, there's something so captivating about watching these two giants go head-to-head.
It's a reminder that sports can bring people together from all over the world, a shared experience of passion, excitement, and yeah, maybe even a little heartbreak.
That's what makes it all worth it.
Okay, so we've covered a lot in this deep dive, but before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final thought, something to think about as you reflect on this series. This Border-Gavaskar Trophy showed us the ups and downs, the unpredictable nature of sports, and the sheer determination of these two teams. What are your final thoughts on this clash of the Titans?
It was a reminder that cricket's a game of inches, where tiny moments can have a huge impact. And it highlighted how important it is to be adaptable, to change your game plan based on the conditions and who you're playing against.
Yeah.
But beyond all the tactics and techniques, this series really showed the human spirit, the passion, the resilience, that never give up attitude. That's what makes sports so compelling.
Well said. So to everyone listening, keep exploring the world of cricket. Dive deeper into the stories, the rivalries, the individual journeys. That's what makes this sport so captivating. The Border-Gavaskar Trophy, it's just one chapter in this ongoing story of international cricket, and we can't wait to see what happens next.
It's going to be a wild ride, that's for sure.
It really has been amazing. So much to unpack. We've gone deep into the matches, the players, the strategies, even what it's like to be a fan there. But as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to think about what this all means for the future. What can Australia and India take away from this series?
That's a great question. For Australia, I think this series was a real statement. They showed they can win anywhere, not just at home. They've got a team that's both talented, A&D, tough, and they're definitely not satisfied with just this win.
So they're on the rise. What do they need to focus on to keep that momentum going? What pitfalls should they watch out for?
The biggest danger is getting complacent.
Mm-hmm.
They can't just sit back and relax. They have to keep pushing, keep developing those young players, keep refining their game plan. International cricket is competitive. Other teams are going to be studying them, looking for any weakness they can find.
Got to stay ahead of the game, adapt to new challenges, never underestimate the other team. What about India then? This series showed some vulnerabilities. What do they need to do to bounce back?
We've talked about the need for an all-rounder, someone who can contribute with both bat and ball, and they need a more consistent middle order. But there's something else I think is crucial. Mental resilience.
Oh, yeah.
India seemed to kind of fold under pressure at key moments, and that's something they really need to work on.
So it's not just about skill. It's about the mental game, being able to handle those high-pressure situations. How do you build that kind of mental toughness?
It's a few things. Building a stronger team culture, instilling a real belief in their abilities, and developing ways to cope with pressure. It's also about learning from mistakes, analyzing their performance, figuring out where they can improve. This loss, it's tough, but it could be a valuable learning experience for them in the long run.
They say you learn more from failure than success, right?
Exactly.
All right, so one last thought for our listeners before we wrap things up. Something to think about as you go back over everything we talked about this series. It showed how quickly things can change, how unpredictable sports can be, and just the pure determination of these two teams. What are your final thoughts on this clash of the Titans?
I think it was a reminder that in cricket, the tiniest things can make all the difference, and how important it is to be able to adapt, change your game plan depending on the conditions and who you're playing against. But more than that, more than the strategies, this series was about the human spirit, the passion, the resilience, that never give up attitude. That's what makes sports so amazing to watch.
That's a great way to put it. So to everyone listening, keep exploring the world of cricket. Dig into the stories, the rivalries, the journeys of these players. That's what makes this sport so captivating. The Border-Gavaskar Trophy, it's just one chapter in this huge story of international cricket, and we can't wait to see what the next chapter holds.
Yeah, who knows what's next?
Yeah.
But one thing's for sure, it's going to be exciting.
That's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, and we'll catch you next time.